Are the purple people eaters prepared to feast on the beasts of the NFC North?
What? We're here for the Vikings preview.
You know that they're the purple people eaters, right?
Yeah,
And then the bears and lions would be the beasts of the North.
yeah. Because the
So,
Packers as beast though.
I don't know if you can call a pack or a beast or not. Kind of just like a regular guy that just works in a cold factory, I think. But
Yeah.
anyways, Minnesota Vikings. We're coming here with our preview, last team of the NFC North before we jump back over to the AFC and go down south. So we'll wrap it up here. We've looked at the Lions and the Bears, two teams that we think are going to be at the top, and the Packers who have potential. So it kind of just depends on what they do for themselves, really. But how do we feel about Minnesota and the Vikings?
I think they've got a lot that they could do. There's definitely a lot of talent on the team.
Yeah, so let's look more closely at it. I think that they've got a lot of the same coaches in place, so not really anything noteworthy there. Kevin O'Connell's been there a couple years. Brian Flores, one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. We'll probably see him get another head coach position if he wants to pursue that. He'll probably get another
Yeah.
opportunity here soon. So I think coaching wise, they're locked down pretty well. So then I think it's more looking at the team itself and seeing, what they have in place and what they can do with it.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what they can do. You have Justin Jefferson, top five wide receiver in my opinion, and it's ludicrous that people don't think he is anymore. He had one bad year with a horrible QB. There's definitely a lot of talent. You have Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. He's old, but I still say he's a top 20 running back. And there's definitely a lot they could do. And the defense hasn't gotten that much worse. The defense is always top 10 in my opinion. They always just find a way to be good. Like you said, Brian Flores, one of the best defensive coordinators, and he really makes sure that his team has a good defense, no matter how bad their offense is.
Yeah, so let's start by looking at the offense. I think the Vikings have one of the most interesting battles at quarterback this year.
Yeah. So you have Kyler Murray, who was just named starter over J.J. McCarthy, who was the starter last year. There was a lot that was going on. He was supposed to start 2 seasons ago, got injured. Sam Darnold started, went 14-3, made the playoffs. Then they let him walk and wanted to keep McCarthy. And starting this season, McCarthy started, and then he went down, and then Wentz went in, and then he went down. McCarthy got a few more games. Brosmer got some games, and McCarthy finished it off. It was a carousel, honestly, and it was horrible. Honestly, from the team last year, I liked Carson Wentz more than either guy.
Yeah, and you go back 2 years, which I think is important. I think that's what you should do when looking at this. So 2 years ago, they have J.J. McCarthy as a rookie. Like he's supposed to be the quarterback for them. I think they took him number 10th overall.
Yeah,
And you bring in Darnold as the backup. J.J. McCarthy gets injured before the season even gets going. Sam Darnold leads the team.
it was definitely a good season, and that's what we could see.
When that happened, typically you keep that quarterback. But I feel like the team, the coach, whoever it was, got a little arrogant thinking it wasn't Sam Darnold that did it, it was the team. We can plug in another quarterback and have the same success. So I think that was their first mistake.
Yeah,
So then you mentioned last year, and they did not repeat the success of the season before. J.J. McCarthy, even though it's his second year, no real experience, so there's still a lot of growing pains, a learning curve, all that. But he did not look good out there.
no,
To put it bluntly, he didn't. And Wentz, he was there for a while, but then he gets injured too. And I think at that point the season is pretty much shot.
yeah, they definitely tried to make like a little bit of a season comeback. They had a winning record. McCarthy had a winning record, surprisingly. They finished 9-8, third in the division. I don't think that it was much of the quarterbacks that got them those wins though. It was an interesting season. There's a lot that could go right. They have a
So
great receiving core. They really do.
yeah, well let's talk about the quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
So that's what happened last year. So JJ McCarthy, year three, but really his second year really playing. Do you think that there is potential for him to grow, or do you think we've seen what he's capable of and he's just not the guy?
I mean, heck, he could be a solid third stringer one day. In my opinion, I don't want to see this guy stake the field ever again.
All right. So you don't think he's starter material.
Nope.
So Kyler Murray, what do you think about him?
Kyler Murray. So you have watched Arizona. You've watched the NFL longer than me. You saw Kyler Murray every season really with Arizona, and I really haven't. I haven't watched many Arizona games, but from what I've seen, he isn't that good. Height. It's a big thing for a quarterback. Some people aren't as tall like Josh Allen or Tyler Shuck, but you want to have some height on you. You want to be tall. Kyler Murray, he's like 5'1" or something. He
It's a
is
distinct
short.
disadvantage with
Yeah,
Kyler.
and I'm surprised he didn't take the MLB, honestly. But he wanted the challenge. He came here, was like the number one overall pick. He led them a Cardinals team to the playoffs. Was it a bad Cardinals team? It was pretty solid, actually. I don't know really how to put the blame because it's hard to see how good a QB was or is when they've been on one team.
Hmm.
So I really don't want to just say that he's downright bad, but he's got a lot of pressure on him to be good with this Minnesota team. That's what happened to McCarthy last year. Like he can probably be decent for them, but pressure and like he could get the yips pretty easily because there's a lot of guys that have Minnesota doing well just because they have so much talent, and they see Keller Murray getting elevated by like Jordan Addison and J.J.
There,
McCarthy, T.J. Hawkinson.
there's a lot of people that think there's just going to be immediate success there. So there
Yeah,
are some high expectations.
I think they have a lower record than they do last year, and that's not saying they were worse than last year. Last year they had a lot happen that they didn't deserve, like that week one comeback against the Bears. That was insane. But there's a lot of games that they shouldn't have won last year, and I think this season they finished with like 6, maybe 8 wins, less than last year, but they're better than last year.
Yeah, so just to complete my thoughts on Kyler Murray, so there were issues in Arizona. How much of that was him? How much of that was the offensive coordinator?
Head coach,
it's hard to tell completely at this point. But I think the two things I think for the Vikings, it's a low risk, high reward opportunity. Like with the way the Cardinals had to cut him, he gets paid. Like he makes bank from the Cardinals. The Vikings signed him for like a $1 million deal. So they're barely having to pay him anything.
yeah,
And so if he flames out and just isn't a number one quarterback anymore, they don't lose anything. But if the coach can push the right buttons and motivate him, if he can if he can have the chip on his shoulder and be like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong and prove that I am good, and he comes to work every day with that mindset, like he can be a good quarterback and lead them to victories. But I think the problem with him is more his in his head, with his personality. I just don't really see him as a leader. I don't really see him as a guy that's going to put in that extra work to do what needs to be done to win. I think he has a lot of natural talent that other guys don't have, and he's been able to find success just with that. But at this level, it demands more of you, and I don't know if he's willing to give that. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'll believe it when I see it. So I
yeah,
think he could do a lot, but I'm not there yet with him. I think he's better than J.J. McCarthy, so I'll give you that. Uh, and I think the Vikings may be in the best position in the league that if both of them are bad, which could very well happen, if that happens, I think you have the best third string in Wentz. So I think that he's a guy that can still come in there and give you a chance to win. So I'll
yeah,
give the Vikings credit for that. If we look at the other offensive players, I think you're right. Justin Jefferson, after a little bit of a disappointing last year, has kind of dropped down a couple notches, but I think that was more who was trying to get him the ball than his actual performance last year.
yeah. He barely made 1,000 yards. He had like 2 touchdowns, but it really wasn't him. It wasn't him. Some other guys with that, they didn't get a shine as much as they should have. Like I know there are a lot of young guys probably on that team that could have done better if there was a good quarterback. But we talked about QBs. We have our thoughts from McCarthy, Wentz, Murray, and I think it's time to move on to the running back. So
Well, well, hold on. So I think Jefferson's gonna have a better year,
yeah,
but there's more depth at wide receiver too. You have Addison and you have Juwan Jennings.
yeah.
So that I think we're gonna see the Vikings have some success passing
Did
with
they get a UFL player?
UFL like wide receiver wise.
Yeah, thought I heard something about it.
I'm not 100% on that. Like they have Ty Felton, Dante Fleming.
Well, they definitely have an interesting receiver room.
Yeah, but they've got some solid guys at the top there that are going to find some success this year, I think. So we'll see that with the Vikings. Then, if we look from there, like running back, and well,
Yeah.
also tight end. So Hawkinson is also, I think, a guy that's good for them. So
Yeah, Hawkins is definitely getting old, but I still think he's good. I think people think he's washed, and it's just a little crazy to me. He's definitely the one of my favorite tight ends just with their hair. Crazy
yeah,
thing to say, but he has good
he's
hair.
he's struggled with some injuries over the years, but he is only 29, so I think
Yeah.
he's still got a couple good years. And then you mentioned running backs. In the North, especially, I think you have to have a good running game.
DeAndre Swift looking at you.
Yeah, I like what the Bears can do. I like what the Lions can do, obviously. I
Packers,
think the Packers, oh, I'm okay on Josh Jacobs, but I think out of them, the Vikings have the weakest running room with Aaron
I
Jones.
think it's with their starter. I think it's the Bears who have the worst. Just because I don't like DeAndre Swift, but Aaron Jones. I think people say the same things. People are saying like these Vikings players, they're washed. People, I see stuff all the time where it's like, if you go to the Vikings, you're washed or you're really young. It's like really weird, and everyone says like Aaron Jones is washed and he's old. Hawkinson's old. I've even seen someone say Jefferson was old. What are we doing? We're saying these guys are bad now? I don't see it. I think Aaron Jones still has a lot left in the tank.
I mean, Jefferson's definitely not. He's only 27. Aaron Jones, he's on the downhill slope now. He's 31. So I think that his best days are behind him. It's just a question of, how much longer he can keep producing. I think maybe Jordan Mason even passes him and takes over, the bigger part of the carries this year.
But yeah, I think Aaron Jones is still good. I'm tired of just hearing that he's bad now. He had some injury time last year. We didn't get to see
Hmm.
him as much as we should have, and that's really annoying. Vikings, they struggle with injuries not as much as like some teams like the Lions and 49ers, but they get injuries to more of their better players.
Yeah,
With the
absolutely.
49ers, they just get obliterated.
Yeah, so the Vikings, we talked about their offense, and I think that when you put it all together, I think they'll be pretty good. Uh,
Yeah, if Kyler Murray can show what
that's
what he should do.
that's what it hinges on.
Yeah.
Whether they're a decent one or a better than average depends on their quarterback play, definitely.
Yeah.
But let's take a minute just to touch on defense, and then we can really just kind of wrap it up with the team in the division there. So I like their defense.
Yeah.
I think that's been their best unit out there the last couple of years, and I think that's going to continue to be.
Yeah, I like, Flores definitely been good with them. The defense, I honestly I don't know many people who are on there. I don't really know any stars on there. But I do know that as a unit, they are
Hmm.
definitely have been around top 10, top 12 in the league.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is just how they play together, and the coach, I think, deserves a lot of that credit. I mean, you have Dallas Turner, a first round pick from a couple years ago. Linebackers, you got like Cashman and Van Ginkel. You drafted Caleb Banks this year in the first
Yeah.
round, so I think, it could be exciting to see what he has. Um, what's disappointing is they signed Jamal Adams, who has been one of the better, safeties in recent years, and he's injured before the year even starts.
Yep.
So that's disappointing because he would have had a real impact, and that's, kind of weakens their depth chart right at the very beginning. But I think that they're still going to be good defensively.
Yeah.
So,
I I remember watching their schedule reveal and the guy they chose to be put in it was their kicker.
mhm.
So that was interesting, and honestly, I've seen a lot of people say that this guy's a top five kicker. Honestly, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen much of him. I mean,
We'll watch this year, though.
yeah, we
Yeah.
will.
So how do you think they do this year?
I think they finished fourth in the North. I think that's pretty much a given. I think they finish 7-10.
7-10.
Yeah,
I think also that they finish at the bottom of the North, but I see it as the Bears as the team that wins, and all
Uh,
the other three battling it out. I think this is one of the best divisions. I think all four teams are pretty solid.
I just the reason I have it, I don't see Kyler Murray taking the full step and being as good as people think he was,
Hmm.
like think he could be, but I still think he does decent.
Yeah,
I just have him at fourth because I don't think he can keep up to the level of play in the North.
yeah. I
You
think
know, he's lived his whole life in like the sun, Arizona, Texas, the South, like in that Southwest area, and now he's in Minnesota. He's traveling to these northern games all the time. I mean,
it's going to be a bit of a
yeah,
challenge, a little bit different. Even if Minnesota plays indoors, you have Green Bay, you have Chicago. Those are tough ones. But I agree with you. I think about a 7-10 record overall. I think, competitive. I think when they play teams outside the division, that they'll have a solid chance to win. But I think that they're just going to end up on the losing end more often than not when they play against the rest of the division.
I really don't see them getting more than 2-4 in their division. Like in their division,
Hmm.
I don't see them doing very good. Maybe they get some upset that like sends the Packers out of the playoffs or something, but I really don't see them doing much.
Yeah, so I think that's where we have it here. We may see the Vikings looking at drafting a quarterback next year.
Yeah, hopefully they do.
But we'll wrap it up here then and come back here soon with the Jaguars preview.
Yep.